Welcome one and all to a report on the official DreadBall UK National Championship 2019. Well, at least my game's therein. Hello there, and as you can see, I'm wearing a hat. It's a very important fact here. So, DreadBall. I haven't played that much of it since the last tournament that I actually won with my Z's. So, how did I do at the UK National Championship at Franticon? So, let's have a look. Of course, it's the Z's again because I haven't painted any other teams in the meantime, and they are my favourite team. How could you not love tiny, genetically modified monkey clones swarming the pitch and just overcrowding it, distracting the referee? It's fun. So, there was my team laid out for the best painted team judging, which, spoiler alert, I didn't win. I did paint these quite a while ago, and I could probably add a bit more to them to make them a bit better, but there were some ridiculously nice teams at this tournament. There were 28 players in total, so much larger than the previous tournament that I won, so getting any kind of accomplishments in this one would be even greater. Let's just dive straight in, shall we? Although I suppose I should tell you, the rules is pretty simple. There weren't any of the special extra things that you would often associate with DreadBall, like cheerleaders and coaches and whatnot. It was just the standard teams from the rulebook. There were no events in play, so just the basic card deck, and that's pretty much it. Nothing fancy, no weird stuff, just the basics, so it's quite beginner friendly as well as being a tasty one for veterans. Steve has joined in the chat. Hello there. I'm sure you'll be picking up some tactical tips here for your future DreadBall career. You can see in game one I'm up against the Sphere, and before I tell you about this game, actually I did play one practice game the night before that was against a team whose name escapes me, so I'm going to see if they're in the rulebook right now. They push you around with their minds, but what are they called? Let's see here. If anyone knows, then feel free to let me know. I do not remember what they're called, and it's going to take too long to find them, I think. But anyone who doesn't know the DreadBall teams, anyone who's intimately familiar with them will know the one I was talking about. And my monkey defence line struggled greatly in that practice game to hold up against the mind-pushing abilities of that team. So any team that has the ability to shift the monkeys around, as you can see from this first image here, that's my typical Z setup if I'm the home team in the first turn. So anyone who can move those monkeys out of the way is going to be able to score points fairly easily. If my only strategy is to just block up the spots you want to score from and not harm any of your players, then the ability to nudge them can be quite useful. So there were a few teams in this tournament that had abilities similar to that, that can either push you out of the way or knock you over. The Sphere are one of those. They have an ability to knock enemy players over without the opposing players having much say in the matter. So that's what you really want to do with the Z's if you come up against a wall like this. So when I'm the home team, the typical strategy is, in this picture here, I'll fill up the left-hand strike zone at the bottom there. The back hexes, preferably, because the opposing players have to come further into my half to shift them out of the way then, and it's more difficult for them to get back to defend or to go back and get the ball. And then the others, you can just count out the hexes to make sure that anyone who's running in illegally off the subs bench can jump to fill in the extra spaces. If you're the away team, then clearly you could not just set up and leave just big gaps in your central strike zone at the back, because people would just be scoring three pointers mainly, but possibly even 4 pointers for fun if you don't have any monkeys in there. So you can't just start the game the same setup if you're home or away. Steve is apparently painting his convicts. Very nice. I hope they're orange in the typical convict colour scheme. So this is the strategy I've gone for with the Z's here, and my opponent, as you can see, has got a Sphere sitting on the bonus hex, which is another useful place to stand for defensive postures, and that also allows you to be closer to the enemy territory, so you can jump out, get the ball, score some points, while also defending against bonus points being scored against you. It depends. If you have a lot of players like the Z's, then you can afford to kind of camp a bit further back and still have players available up the pitch to score. So you can see my player number 1 in the top right corner there has just tried to score in the first turn. He missed actually on that shot. But the general strategy, just swarm monkeys onto the pitch and then use whoever's left to go and score. And it's, in theory, it becomes easier as the game goes on if the monkeys are still alive, because I'm getting lots of coaching dice and I've built up a decent hand of cards for re-rolls as well. And also extra action cards, which are very, very handy for the monkeys. So with the monkeys, of course, if you're not familiar, you get 2 run moves for the price of 1. So that allows you to only spend 2 action tokens to bring on 4 players off the bench to fill up those gaps in the defence. And then buying a card is usually another one. Then the final monkey is generally going to use 2 actions, try and pick up the ball, and then hopefully try to score. You can see here that he missed. There aren't a huge amount of pictures, but I'm going to give you the gist of what's going on. So you can see that currently at this point the monkeys are in the lead. I've got number 1 standing on a bonus hex there, because when you've got this big wall of monkeys, the enemy do have to start sending their players down to your end of the pitch just to move out of the way, so they are going to leave gaps in defence. So if you have just 1 monkey there who can score, and you can see there's 2 monkeys actually in enemy territory at the moment, and the first ones to ditch their defensive post will be in the 2 forward strike zones on the flanks of those, because the one right at the back is defending against bonus points being scored. So that's the most important position. So the monkeys either side of him will be the ones that immediately go forwards when required. As monkeys get sent off or killed, they would be the ones to go and abandon their post. And the enemy, if they get caught with lots of players up at my end of the pitch, they really don't have that much to defend with. So even if they're scoring points, I should have the opportunity to score. And in this edition, with the re-rolls for cashing in cards, it's easier to do so with the monkeys now. You can see I've got the ball up there. I believe on this occasion I wasn't able to shoot with that monkey there. So I just marched the ball as far into enemy territory as possible. If you're unable to shoot, really just have to keep the ball away from the enemy as best you can. Jeff says hey. DreadBall community legend in the chat there. So you can see what's going on here. I'm currently 4 points ahead at this stage in the game, as you can see on the left, and there's barely any time left. So my opponent needs to be scoring points. So because he needs big scores to try and get something out of this game, I've just piled monkeys into the back strike zone, just filling it up as much as possible, because I'm okay with him scoring points as long as it's not big scores, since I'm in the lead. So that's where all the monkeys have just swarmed to at the moment. And you can see I've still got the opportunity to score some points though, because I've got 1 monkey just lingering around halfway up the pitch, and when the opportunity arises he will try and score. And I think my opponent did actually score a 2-pointer on the previous turn. If you look at that situation there, because it's so blocked up, I think he was able to knock one of the monkeys out the way and score for 2 points there, getting it back to 2-0 with only 1 turn left. So here is the final piece of the game here. So because my defensive area was so jammed with monkeys and my opponent needed to get a big score, he thought, well, he could try and go for a 2-pointer where there are no monkeys defending it and try and get a draw. But instead he decided, you know what, instead of that I'm going to try and knock over all the monkeys with the Sphere's special ability, where if they evade past opposing players repeatedly, then if you keep doubling what you need to succeed, then you can knock them over. So he was using several players to kind of evade around my monkey defense wall and knock them all down by doubling. And this would have required him to use some of his cards for re-rolls, I think, and any coaching dice he may have had. So rather than using those on the 2-point strike attempt, he's using them to clear out the wall of monkeys and then have a go at the 4-pointer, which would mean obviously a win rather than a draw. So after knocking down all those monkeys in a row, which at this point I was thinking, oh dear, this is not going well. I did not foresee this. Then he takes a shot from the 4-point zone. He was on 2 dice on 4+ to score with the final throw of the game. But missed. Look at that, it's a 2 and a 3. So the Z's win the first game 2 points to 0. And very, very nice start indeed. So the strategy, the holes are appearing in this Z strategy. There are a lot of teams that have the ability to nudge monkeys out the way, and some of them don't even require the monkeys to even get any kind of dice roll to counter it. Anytime there's just a rule that automatically lets you knock people down or push them out of the way, that's like the kryptonite to this defensive wall strategy. In the next game, you can see I'm up against some Teratons, and there hasn't been any scoring yet. So this is obviously after I'm the home team again, by the way, which is nice, perfect, because if you're the away team as the monkeys, they've got a chance to kill your players and obviously score points before you've filled up the pitch. And any time that they can clear your players out or get the lead, it's going to kind of send the momentum back their way. And with the monkeys, you need the momentum. You need players on the pitch early, and you need them to stay there so that you can build up excess coaching dice as the game goes on to give you more chance of scoring points. So getting the home advantage is nice. And the way the tournament worked was the two highest scores would play against each other in the next round and so on. So it just happened that I was the home team again for the round number 2 against the Teratons. And, well, there aren't many pictures of this one because it was very, very quick, and I just won with 2 shots, basically. I scored a 3-pointer and a 4-pointer with the monkeys very, very early in the game, and my opponent wasn't able to stop me. So, of course, most teams only have 6 players on the pitch at once, so they generally have to commit players forward, and choosing where to defend can be quite important, because if you abandon the back strike zone, it's very, very possible for a monkey to get down there. Monkeys are pretty good at dashing with the fact they're all jacks, so they're going to get an extra dice to it. So moving around the place is generally quite easy for them, and they're good at evading past opposing players as well. So if you leave gaps in behind, they are one of the better teams at reaching them. So I was just able to win that one quite quickly. I would have thought Teratons would be a fairly difficult team to face. They have some pretty tricky abilities, but on this occasion they didn't really get a chance to use too many of them because it was over in short order. Also, with the monkeys, you need a bit of luck with the referee cards as well. If the opposition have a chance to move the referee really far away from all your players so you can't distract him, then there's a high chance that some of them are going to get sent off, which then later reduces your coaching dice and reduces your ability to flood the pitch. So there was that one. So that's game 2. 2 wins in the bag, 1 gigantic win. And this next game, let's see, Jeff says the 2nd edition Zs are really quite good. Yes, they are. And at this point, I'm now sitting on a 100% competitive Z DreadBall record in 2nd edition at this stage in the tournament, since I won all my games at the previous tournament as well. And the team I'm against in game 3, they are, I think they're the unincorporated, so it's a Reb team, so they have several different player types. And you can see I've got the monkey defense line set up already in this one, because I was the home team again, which is nice. And you can see I'm already 3 points up at this stage, and I've got my monkey right into the enemy zone there. So if I'm scoring early, you'll see that I'm often not going for the bonus hex, first of all, because that's going to be 1 less dice, and early in the game, particularly in the first turn, I'm not going to have any coaching dice, and I'm not going to have as many cards as I may end up with later in the game. So I'd rather try and get a 3-pointer rather than fail with a 4-pointer that's probably going to be on perhaps just 1 dice. So I'd much rather increase the chance of scoring, because the Zs are only scoring on 5+. Dr. W. Kruger is in the chat and says, now comes my poor performance. Well, you're going to have to remind me who you are then, Mr. Kruger, or Doctor should I say. Oh, and hello, he says as well. Hello there. So I'm going to go on the assumption that Dr. Kruger is the owner of this Rebs team here then, with the timing of the video, unless he's watching it delayed. We'll await confirmation on that. So you can see the ball has popped in there. Now, one interesting thing about this Rebs team is their, let's see what they're called, Galians, I would assume it's pronounced, and they are a kind of jack, and they're these big, they're almost centaur-like creatures, and they have the ability to push players out of the way. And when I saw that, I thought that's actually pretty dangerous for my defence line of monkeys strategy, because if you can just push people without actually having to roll anything effectively, and then they can push you again if they succeed with a slam, of course, after that. So, yes, it is him. It is the owner of the team in the chat there, so we can get his valuable insight as well, perhaps. So, oh, and the light's flickering on and off. That's going to look very spooky if it's going to keep doing that. Dino Titan Edition, hello, in the chat as well there. So, it seems the Unincorporated have lots of these interesting abilities, but they do need to make use of cards for some of them, as far as I'm aware, which makes it a bit more difficult to accomplish that. So, on paper, it looks like a decent counter to the monkey defense wall, but in practice, you need a bit of luck as well. I think certain cards are very useful to this Rebs team. So this is another one that, as you can see, I'm up to 6 points now, because it's very, very difficult to, if you're having to commit players forward, you're going to leave spaces, and if I get the right cards to give extra actions to my monkeys, then I've always got, very spooky, then there's always the possibility that I'll be able to go and score 3-pointers, even if you're blocking up the 4-point spot. So you can see number 4 monkey scoring another 3-pointer there. That's a good spot to score from, because it's, if you can stand there, because it's a bit closer to halfway than the further forward hexes. So there is something to be said for blocking up either the hex that the monkey is standing on now or the bonus hex, just to get people to commit further into your half if they're going to score points. Of course, if you're monkeys, you can just fill up that whole back row anyway, so it doesn't matter. And number 10, because I'm already on 6 points at this stage, he's just able to go for a 1-pointer later on, and that's going to make it another win. So it wasn't quite as quick as the game against the Teratons, but still not the longest. So that Rebs team, interesting, definitely, quite complicated. Most teams don't have such a variety of stats in their player types. They've got, according to this, they've got 4 different players, and each one of them has wildly different stats. So I can imagine that could take a while to get used to. The monkeys, of course, are really easy. Everything's terrible apart from agility, really. And their armour, which isn't too bad either, actually, which surprises me. I would think that if you wanted to weaken the monkeys a bit, you should lower their armour, maybe to 5+ instead of 4+, so there's more chance of them being killed or seriously injured. I think that would be one easy way, if you think the monkeys are overpowered. People talking about marauders in the new edition, slightly improved due to jack changes. Yes, that is true. Any team that relies on jacks for doing things, particularly with the ball, has got a bit of a boost in this edition. That's why the Zs are now much more viable, I think, because I can just use that one player to reliably shoot and try and score in every turn almost, while keeping everyone else in defence. Because of the ability, he's going to be able to move and shoot at the same time. If I don't have the right cards, I still have the possibility of scoring each time. Okay, let's go on to the next game then. So that's another 7-0. So at this point, I'm still not on the top table, though. Going into the final round, I'm on table 2, because presumably 2 other players have also won all their games by slightly higher margins than I did. So yes, here we go. Against the Enforcers, the human team, of course. And yet again, you'll notice that I'm the home team. Very good run of draws here to get into the home side each time. I think it's a big advantage for the monkeys, and at this point I'm 3-0 up. So this game, the monkey defence line kind of falls apart. I do get into the lead, but I mean, look at the pitch here. You can see that I'm currently 5-0 up at this stage, but I've got a monkey down, and you'll see there's not 10 monkeys on the pitch right now. That's because lots of them get sent off during this match and injured. So at one stage, the referee foul spot check for me having too many players on the pitch. Close to the end of the game, I think, at about 2/3 of the way through maybe, I lost 4 or 5 players in one go to the spot check for having too many players on. So I just lost half my team sent off for a turn in one go, which is quite devastating for the monkeys, because especially for my strategy where I need players to just block up the strike zones, and I also need someone committed further forward to try and score as well. So it was actually really dicey. I was in a decent lead at that stage during the game, but of course when there's barely any monkeys left on the pitch, it's fairly easy to score. So you can see I've not really got much defence going on in the 2 side strike zones there, but by this stage we're very close to the end. So I really just need to stop the big scores coming in. And you can see I am just scoring little points here and there. So number 4 here, I think the point he scores is because it was in my last turn, I think maybe he scored a point, because I was 4 points ahead. So I knew I could guarantee myself a win if I just scored a 1-pointer, which is the safest thing for him to try. So I think I managed that in my last turn, to go 5-0 up with 1 turn remaining. So it was guaranteed to be a win at that stage. So not a complete whitewash like the previous 2 games, definitely. And you can see, get it to 5, but it does come down to 3 again, because my opponent, realising that he can't shift all the monkeys out the way in the middle, goes for a 2-pointer to lower the score, and oh, spoiler alert, so gets it to 3-0 by the end. So that's 4 wins in a row with the monkeys. What does it mean? Well, it's a medal. Medals only awarded to the top 3 positions, so which one is it going to be? There you go, 2nd place. DreadBall UK National Championship, Mantic Franticon 2019, 2nd place for the Z's. 4 wins out of 4. So with 28 players, of course, it is possible after 4 rounds that you can have 2 players who got maximum wins, which is exactly what happened, and the other player to get 4 wins did so by a slightly larger margin. I think his results were 7-0, 7-0, 7-0, 4-0. And mine were 2-0, 7-0, 7-0, 3-0. So slightly lower. Anyone in the chat? Oh, talking about the armour on the Z's. Yes, I agree. The Z models do look like they should have Defense 4, because it actually does look like some kind of armour. But yeah, I think maybe that would be the easiest way to weaken them, though. Let's see. Dr. Kruger again, putting threat hexes on as many apes as possible might be a smart move, stops them distracting the ref with the sneak foul on the next turn. Yes, if you can threaten all the monkeys that are going to be near the referee, then you could stop them distracting and ultimately get lots of them sent off. So that's another strategy. Let's see, anything else going up on there? Steve says, surprised people aren't castling up against your monkeys. Well, can other teams castle up as effectively as the monkeys can? I mean, they can block up the back strike zone, and I'm not going to commit enough monkeys forward to be able to score against that, but that's going to leave me the opportunity to score plenty of 1 or 2 pointers for most of the game. And if they're only committing 1 player forward, let's say, then that means they're going to be limited in how many monkeys they can actually push out the way and also collect the ball, because as soon as they do score, that means that, let's say they've had to use 2 players, 1 to clear the way and 1 to score, that means they're not going to be able to block up everything. I'm still going to be able to score myself as well. So yeah, there are counters to the wall of monkeys. If you do play defensively, and you somehow, if you get into the lead and then play defensively and force the monkeys to commit more players out to try and push your players out of the way, they're going to struggle with that. There's also plenty of ways to nudge the monkeys. Lots of teams have abilities to do that. Let's see, Dino says, would I broadcast some live matches? Yes, that's something I'm looking into at the moment. It's very suitable for live streaming DreadBall. It's not like Dead Zone where it's very 3-dimensional and it's hard to get the camera into the right spot. and it's not like Kings of War where it takes an hour or two for a game. So I think DreadBall would be perfect to live stream, so I will look at doing that at some point in the near future. Jeff says, how's the quality of painted teams at Franticon? There were some ridiculously good ones, definitely better than all my painted teams, for the most part. I'm struggling to think of any that weren't at least competent. I didn't think any of them were bad, but there were some ridiculously tasty ones. Okay, so this was the prize. Now, this was actually the prize for first place in the tournament, but the person who won the tournament was actually the organiser of the tournament, so he decided that he wasn't eligible for this prize, probably because he already owns one, so this went down to second place, and that means I took it. So it's very large, this DreadBall mat, though. Now, look at this, compared to the existing mat that I have, which is the official one, I think, and on top of that is the version 1 board. Look at the size difference there. It is a massive DreadBall pitch indeed. And that is the end. So there's the prize, there's the medal, another one for the trophy cabinet, and that's 2 DreadBall tournaments, a first place and a second place. So what does that mean? That means that I'm going to have to take a different team next time, I think, because 2 back-to-back 100% winning performances, 2 awards, a trophy and a medal, time to try a different team. That's what it says to me. So which team is it going to be? Well, it's either going to be, let's see, can you actually see this? They're the nice see-through phasing dudes of doom. So I've got that team, and I'm going to paint them. We'll see what that actually entails, whether it's just a series of washes and highlights. And then I've also got a sphere team as well, which I want to paint at some stage. So I'll work on those and decide which one of them I want to take to the next tournament. Because once you've proven that you can be successful with a team and that the strategy works and that you've won multiple prizes with, you don't need to just hammer it into the ground and keep taking it to endless tournaments. Anyone who's heard me talk about other game systems will know that that's my line of thinking there as well. Don't just want to keep doing the same thing over and over again just because it works. You've got to mix things up, try some different teams, some different armies. So, Dino says that's a cool team, there's no need to paint them. Yeah, they could definitely be put on the table with no paint at all, but I think there will be at least a little bit going on there. It does make me a little bit inspired though, because I do paint quite slowly, so when I see something like this and think that's not going to take much work to get that looking good, then that's definitely something that can give me the nudge required to get the painting done a bit faster. So we'll see about that. There's also going to be videos from the Dead Zone and the Kings of War tournaments from Franticon coming up as well. I'll probably do the Dead Zone one next. I didn't take too many pictures of that one because we were on quite a tight time frame, and Dead Zone's much more of a back and forth game, and you're still interacting in your opponent's turn rolling dice, as opposed to Kings of War where you just have a nice 5 or 10 minute break after each one of your turns where you can just sit there taking pictures and occasionally marking damage on the back of your units. Let's see, anything else interesting going on in the chat? Sam is looking forward to my Kings of War and Dead Zone reports. Yep, won't be too long at all. I think the Dead Zone one will be today. Kings of War might be tomorrow, possibly later on if I get a chance. But we shall see. And right then, I think it's time to wrap this one up. So it's very spooky in here today, as you can see. And anything else I want to get in there before we go off the air here? Well, let's turn the camera off. There we go. And anything else that I would like to say? Well, just flicking through the old DreadBall rulebook here, seeing if anything jumps out at me. So, Z's. Other ways to play them. If you can think of other strategies that would work with the Z's, let me know. because it seems to me that at least the most effective strategy is what I've been doing, but there are counters to it, of course, so it would be handy to have a plan B sometimes. So let me know. There are the possibilities, of course, of just piling monkeys surrounding enemy players and then slamming them when they're limited on dice, because you've got so many monkeys looking at them. But again, against a lot of teams that's not going to work still, because you're only slamming them on 5s. So stealing the ball is a really good one for the monkeys. I did that quite a few times during the tournament. Anytime an enemy player ends their rush with the ball in hand, that just says to me, perfect, I'd rather try and steal the ball rather than pick it up off the floor almost, because the monkeys are just better at it. Of course, when you're picking it up off the floor, you can double and get a free action out of it, but stealing the ball is just much more fun. And it's right in the monkeys' wheelhouse, as they say. Okay, wrapping this one up. Oh, one question that I'll just answer here from Steve. What do you think about a whole day DreadBall event? I would definitely go to it. I think you could fit in a lot of games of DreadBall over a day. You could even get 6 or 8 games of DreadBall in, probably. And I think that would be a lot of fun indeed, depending how many players would turn up, because the last 2 DreadBall tournaments I've done were obviously kind of tacked on to the end of other events. For example, this one was on the end of the first day, which had Dead Zone singles tournament and the Kings of War doubles. So a lot of people who wouldn't normally play DreadBall were happy to just stick around for the evening to play this as well, because interest in the game has dwindled significantly since it first came out, and I haven't heard about a purely DreadBall tournament on its own with no other events alongside it for quite some time. So I would definitely be interested in it though. Dr. Kruger is thinking about possibly giving the monkeys a go. They're certainly different. Yes, they are. I think they're one of the more fun teams because you can obviously commit lots of fouls, and that's something that most teams don't get away with as readily. So it's definitely different. And that's one thing I definitely like about DreadBall, is the wide variety of teams and the abilities of those teams. So no 2 games are going to be the same unless you just endlessly come up against the same team by bad luck. And DreadBall Ultimate, I haven't tried that out at all yet, so we shall see. Okay, I will see you later probably with the Dead Zone tournament report. So let me know in the comments what you think about DreadBall in general, 2nd edition, whether you think the Z's are overpowered, any interesting strategies that you would like to recommend, or any tips on the 2 teams I'm thinking of starting next, either the Phasers or the Sphere. And don't forget to check out all the links in the description. Don't forget, for brightening up everyone's life and spending untold hours in front of the camera and in front of the microphone to give you endless hours of wonderful entertainment, a beacon of hope in this world of misery in which we live, don't forget to thank me for that by donating your entire life savings on a monthly basis via the various fundraising resources in the link below. And you can probably follow me on Twitter as well if you like, and join my Facebook group if you want. And with that, all that remains to be said is, I suppose I can't really say good night at this time of day. Let's go with good afternoon, shall we? Good afternoon out there, whatever you are.